Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of VTuber Literature, where cute little anime creatures explore works of literature throughout Japanese history. I'm your host, the Professor, and today we'll be taking a look at women. More specifically, what were the societal and personal expectations for women in the mid-Showa to the Heisei era, and how that reality interacts with how they're expected to be. We'll also be exploring how these expectations changed over time and what that meant for women. As a reminder, the Showa era lasted from 1926 to 1989, and the Heisei era lasted from 1989 to 2019. Before we begin, let's set the stage by taking a look at the defining features of the mid to late Showa period and into the Heisei period. These periods were greatly shaped by the boom-bust cycles in the economy, which had a major impact on Japanese society. At the end of World War II, Japan's economy was in a dire state, with large portions of its industrial capacity being damaged or destroyed. This led to widespread suffering for many in the years immediately after the war, as food prices skyrocketed. The American occupation of Japan, which lasted until 1952, imported Western ideals to Japan. The right to vote was extended to women in 1947. The country underwent a process of Americanization. With that, American goods, hobbies, notably baseball, and societal values were imported and imprinted on the Japanese population. The post-war economic miracle. So by the 1960s, Japan's economy was rapidly rebuilding at a pace that nobody expected. Within 20 or so years, Japan became an economic powerhouse, the strongest in East Asia at the time. The 1960s were also known as the Golden 60s, highlighting just how prosperous the economy was. A strong middle class flourished, and many people were able to afford goods once reserved to the wealthy, which led to the emergence of the new three treasures: a refrigerator, television, and a washing machine. More on that later. By the 1970s, Japan had the third largest economy in the world, a literal miracle when compared to the post-war years. The decades of the 1970s and the 1980s were the peak of economic growth, yet this growth was supported by an ever-ballooning bubble. The decades were also when Japan's technology and manufacturing sectors became some of the best in the world. Sony, Toshiba, Panasonic were all renowned for their innovative and high-quality products. The Showa era ended in 1989, ushering in a new era, the Heisei era, and with that, new hopes of prosperity. However, this hope would be short-lived, as in 1991, Japan would face its worst economic crisis since the post-war years. Starting in 1986, a bubble economy began supporting the growth of the Japanese economy, as stock and asset prices became severely overvalued. In 1991, this bubble finally burst, sending the stock market and Japanese economy into a downward spiral. Families were earning less, which resulted in less spending, and the economy slowed to a standstill. The period between 1990 and 2000 was known as the lost decade, or 失われた10年, due to the economic standstill. The 2000s and 2010s fared little better, and the term 失われた20年, 失われた30年have been used to describe the economic stagnation that Japan has been struggling to rectify since 1991. Now, what does that have to do with societal expectations for Japanese women? A whole lot, actually. Now let's see what our contestants have to say. Introducing today's contestants. All right, introducing our contestants. Shoue!
Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you guys.
Raymond!
Hi, I'm Raymond. I'm so excited to be on the show. I like the topic that we're doing today.
Thank you. Marzia!
I'm Marzia. I'm just here for the free latte.
And Naoki!
Hey guys, I'm Naoki, the slime. Looking forward for this show.
So, tell me, what are some defining features of the ideal Japanese woman in the post-war Showa era? Okay. Marzia, what's your answer for this?
Good at making coffee?
That is important. Yes. But not quite. What about you, Raymond? What do you say?
Let's see. I think for post-war show, I think they were the passive and domestic, like, caretaker kind of person, right? That's what people look for.
Correct. Here's a jelly bean for you.
Oh,
You
thank
can't,
you.
you
Thank you.
can't see me passing you the jelly bean, but here you go.
Thank you.
Okay. What about the late Showa era then? What do you have to say about this, Naoki?
I think it's pretty similar to what Raymond said, but more focused on being a good mother and a full-time housewife.
You are also correct. Here's a jelly bean for you too.
Thank you.
And last but not least, what are the characteristics of the ideal Japanese woman in the Heisei era? Let's turn it over to Shoei!
I think in the Heisei era, women were like a bit more career oriented, but not too career oriented, if that makes sense. Like, they're expected to like contribute to income, but like somewhat also expected to like leave that entirely once they have like a child or something like that. And then they're still like very feminine and suburban.
Yes, I completely agree with you. They're expected to have a job and to have a life outside of staying at home, but also they were expected to become a full-time housewife, and they weren't supposed to focus on their career for so long. We'll be looking more into this with some of our texts, including convenience store women, which we will get to a little later. Okie dokie. The women in the dunes, or I don't like sand. It's coarse and rough and irritating and gets everywhere. By Kobo Abe. 1962's The Women in the Dunes is Kobo Abe's novel that is primarily about totalitarianism, but it also reflects the complicated relationships between men and women in the post-occupation era. With US-controlled censorship and occupation coming to an end, people were no longer worried about the immediate needs of survival, and now had to contend with a new social order. For men and women who had lived during the war, there was a divide. Men had seen the horrors and trauma of battle and had been left directionless, having grown up being taught that to die for your country at all costs was the right thing to do. Women, by comparison, were largely sheltered from seeing the scenes of conflict that men had. In Abe's novel, he reflects this tension between men and women and how society forces them together into new domestic roles in the post-war peacetime Japan. The protagonist, Nikki Junpei, is trapped in a sandy prison in the form of a normal house in the bottom of a pit. He's forced into a new domestic setting that he did not have in his urban apartment life before. In fact, the idea of the homestead is reflected in the town motto. Do you remember what the motto is? Naoki! Do you remember?
No.
I can't believe you did this to me, Naoki. Okay, someone a little bit more reliable. Marzia!
Love of coffee?
You've just been staring at that mug of coffee for too long.
Yeah, it's getting a
think.
bit cold.
I'll go get the interns to get you another one. Raven, what do you have? Please have the right answer.
The town motto. I think it was "Love Your Home." Was it?
Absolutely correct. Thank you. Thank you. That was. I was looking for that. Here's a jelly bean for you. Thank you.
Whoa!
The way you
You guys don't get jelly beans.
Yay!
Understandably, Junpei does not take kindly to this new setting, and being forced to play house with this unknown woman. Understandably, Junpei does not take kindly to his new setting and, being forced to play house with this lady he just met. So, the Sand Woman is the only one he can communicate with in the pit, so what does he do? Does he, A, pity her as a fellow innocent prisoner? B, start schmoozing, spending all his time flirting with her? C, resents her and uses her as a tool for escape and sexual release? Or D, he only talks to village men outside the pit? Alright, Marzia, what's your answer?
I don't know, D or something? Do you like, is this decaf? Gross.
Yeah, we have a legal limit on how much caffeine we can provide to our contestants. So yes, it is decaf. You
Ew.
take it or leave it.
Okay.
Okay. Well, none of you get jelly beans this time. You got it wrong. It's C. He resents her and uses it as a tool for escape and sexual release.
Yikes.
Really, really morbid if you think about it. Yup. Because communicating with women is hard. And he immediately assumes that she's a puppet of the village without a will of her own, so working out any plan of escape with her is out of the question. Instead of working with women to change societal expectations, he instead assumes that women, or at least the Sand Woman, is what's holding him back in this facsimile of married life. He also takes it for granted that the Sand Woman will continue to cook and clean for him even after he mistreats her. Like he's a man-child. Junpei, whose control and self-determination has been taken away from him, then exerts control over the woman at his disposal by using her as a hostage, verbally abusing her, and even attempting to rape her near the end of the novel. He also goes between thinking of her as an enemy to thinking of her sexually. The link between violence and sex is shown in the passage in the way Abe flows from one topic to the other. Quote, he was angry. He wanted to make admit her guilt even if he had to force it out of her. At the very thought, his hair bristled and his skin felt like scratchy, dry paper. Skin seemed to establish an association of ideas with the word force. Suddenly, she became a silhouette cut out from its background. End quote. He then continues to describe how the silhouette of a woman is arousing and easy to embrace. Well, that goes from 0 to 100 real quick. But reducing a woman to few traits is definitely, as the young kids say, on brand for Junpei. So tell me, contestants, how does Junpei see the Sand Woman? Is it A, she's diligent and hardworking because she's also stuck in this pit with him? B, stupid, superstitious, passive? Or C, contrary, independent, and assertive? Marzia, what's your answer?
I mean, I'm leaning towards C, but it'll definitely have to be A for Arabica.
Bruh.
You know what? I'm taking your latte away. I'm gonna take that away for now. Someone whose coffee brain isn't going off the rails right now. Naoki, I have faith in you.
Yeah, I think it's B. I think Junpei sees the Sand Woman as a stupid, superstitious, passive woman.
And you are absolutely correct for that. You can even say he's a bit of a misogynist. Yeah, if you answered C, well, that is wrong. The correct answer was B. C actually describes another character, Junpei's girlfriend, who he had before he got caught up in this whole Dune misadventure. Not the sci-fi Dune. She may have come first in Junpei's life, but she's only known in the novel as, quote, the other woman. Placing her as a daily insert affair, while the Sand Woman can be implied to be not the other woman. In other words, the wife and the real woman. The other woman is different from the Sand Woman because she has a passionate personality and often bickers with Junpei, readily voices her opinions and has her life independent from her even though they live together. The Sand Woman, on the other hand, does not often voice her thoughts and feelings and lets Junpei do what he wants with minimal resistance. And she talks about, oh, such horrible, traumatic things like her lost son and husband, in a placid tone. Her passivity, work ethic, and domestic skills makes her an ideal traditional wife. But, while she is passive, she's not stupid or superstitious like Junpei thinks. And in spite of being observant and eager to educate him about her expertise in all things sand, he can't see it. Maybe he chooses not to see it. Our charming protagonist even remarks how uncharacteristically talkative she is. Quote, her topics of conversation were restricted, yet when she entered her own sphere, she suddenly took on a new animation. End quote. But then immediately follows it up with, quote, he wasn't particularly interested in what she had to say, but her words had a warmth in them that made him think of the body concealed beneath her coarse work trousers. End quote. Keeping it real classy there, eh, Junpei? That aside, he was always questioning her even though she'd been in the dunes for longer. When she says that the sand rots things, he mansplains sand to her and only accepts it as being true in the end when he discovers the water veins running through the sand. He immediately assumes she's being superstitious when she's talking about not seeing the stars, and therefore the villagers can wait out his little hostage stunt. Instead, it is based on a concept that she told him earlier in the novel. You know, before he started getting all hot and bothered by her work trousers. Yeesh. You know, then the fog solidifies the sand. In fact, he actually never seems to acknowledge how much she does for him. His work strike against the villagers is only possible, because she picks up the slack and continues to feed him while he pretends he's too injured to work. Like a man-child. Does he ever thank her? Of course not. Cooking and cleaning is just expected of the women. But wait, in this horrible domestic sand prison we've got our man and wife, but who's missing? Kids! The villagers only trust families with multi-generational households to have the privilege of a ladder in their house pits. In Junpei's negotiation with the villagers, they give him a horrifying proposal. Junpei can have a ladder and a way to leave the village if he has sex with the Sandwoman in front of them, thus publicly consummating Junpei and the Sandwoman's pseudo-marriage and ensuring that another laborer will be added to the sand shoveling effort eventually. Junpei, who attempts to rape the Sandwoman to satisfy the villagers' demands, gets rightfully beat up about the face by the Sandwoman, in the only act of physical violence she shows in the entire book. So, in the end, we see that in this post-war, post-occupation Japan, the ideal for women still is the homestead. In spite of widening social acceptance of sexuality and a push for women's rights in the 1960s new wave, in the end, what society, or the villagers in Junpei, expect of women is sex and domestic servitude. Even a decade later, we can see how this expectation of domestic labor and constant quiet support and diminishing of oneself for the sake of the husband and family is expected in the course for women in the 1976's Smile of the Mountain Witch. Now back to some important exposition. Smile of a Mountain Witch, or The Expectation of Following Societal Standards by Obaminako. Obaminako's short story seems to tell the tale of a mountain witch, or Yamamba, in modern Japanese society, when, at its core, the story is about the societal expectations that all women in Japan are expected to carry, often known as the invisible load. The story is told in the third-person, limited omniscient perspective with the unnamed narrator telling the story of the titular mountain witch. What kind of expectations would this load include? Someone trustworthy. I trust Naoki. You gave me the right answer last time. What say you?
Load like laundry and dishes.
A very good answer. You got like a third of a jelly bean. I'll give you a third of a jelly bean for that because it's third right, but not quite.
I'll take it.
Okay. Sure. We haven't heard from you in a bit. What is this load?
I think that load includes like taking care of the home, like being like good man, like wealthy man, and raise like children, as well as like tending to her husband's every need.
And that is precisely the answer I was looking for. 2 beans for you because I like your flavor of boba. Extra jelly bean for that.
Yes.
But indeed. Well, these expectations extend through the narrative story as the narrator tells us about this woman in her life doing her best to fulfill all of the desires of all the people who are around her. In fact, this is actually what causes her ultimate and untimely death, which is kind of messed up if you think about it. Because she's been eating everything that her friends and family put in front of her, she developed serious health issues because of her constant overeating. This was, perhaps exacerbated by her lack of a career or hobbies of her own outside of caring for the home. Obviously, this was perhaps skipped over in the narrator's narration, but trends over the last 50 years supported the notion that women were far less present in the workforce as their presence in the home was much more desirable. And so this woman, feeling the pressure to constantly satisfy the needs of everyone around her, put her own needs second and ended up in the hospital because of it. So, in Smile of the Mountain Witch, why did the protagonist feel that the day that she went to the hospital was the best day of her life? Usually it's the worst. I'm gonna pick on you guys if you don't raise your hands.
We don't have hands to raise.
I'm a slime.
You're absolutely right. Damn, okay, I gotta get you some hands installed. Anyhow, Raymond, what say you?
Well, considering everything that she sort of went through at home, is it because she's finally able to take a break?
Once again, you're quite close to the answer. Not 100% there. I'll give you half a jelly bean for this one.
Okay.
There, have a jelly bean. There you go. Well, since Naoki got a third of a jelly bean, maybe he has the full answer this time.
All right, let's do this. I thought that she felt very happy about that day because she finally has someone taking care of her, like her kids taking care of her and her husband tending to her every need. Am I right?
Yeah, exactly. And since you got half of that question right, well, you and Raymond got both got the half of the answer, so you also get half a jelly bean for that.
Let's go.
And
2.83 jelly beans.
2.38 jelly beans. That's a lot of jelly bean.
2.38 jelly.
2.38 jelly bean. It's a lot. There's only so many jelly beans in the world,
How do you get 0.83 though? That's such a specific number.
We have Michelin star chefs cutting up the jelly beans into very small portions for us. We have fractions from a third, a quarter, 5/16, 2/75, and so on and so forth. They got the fancy
How
Japanese
convenient.
knives.
Wonderful knife skills.
Indubitably.
Indeed.
This load doesn't only affect women who are married, but also those who are single or seeking relationships. As we see in the story, even before getting married, the protagonist still had to allow herself to be melded in a way that was pleasing to her partner. This is contrasted by the protagonist of Will-o'-the-Wisp, who actually, refuses to do what her partner thought was right, leading to severe, unfortunate consequences for her. Will-o'-the-Wisp, or drowning a woman because she's pregnant. Will-o'-the-Wisp, or Onibi, is yet another story about violence enacted on women who belong to what is considered to be a lower social caste. In the story, the main character, Yuka, is involved in a romantic and sexual relationship with the policeman, Nakajima Kazuhiko. The relationship causes an unexpected pregnancy for Yuka and an unwanted liability for Nakajima. Having said that, what did Nakajima do when he found out about the pregnancy? Marty, we haven't heard from you in a little bit. How you liking that new $7 coffee there?
Well, it's not as good as like craft small run chains, but it'll do. But What do you do about the pregnancy? I don't know. Like, he acted like a normal person and they went to the abortion clinic together.
Hmm. Now, in any other world, that would be a completely reasonable response and probably the most responsible one. But in this case, he's what you call a little bit messed up. So, not the right answer, but I do agree with you on that bit for high quality small craft coffee. I do enjoy those myself. Shue, how are you liking your boba? What do you think of the answer? Two completely different questions.
Mm, I'm enjoying my boba, but I think I remember Nakajima when he found out about the pregnancy, he brought Yuka to the beach, which was like kind of a cute gesture. But then he drowns her for not getting rid of the fetus, which is not very nice of him.
No, not at all. It's quite bittersweet, but maybe twistedly romantic if you're into
If you're into
gothic.
that.
I guess yes, but he is incredibly messed up like that. So
Mhm.
jelly bean for you, and thank you for the idea
Yay.
of that I'll keep in my back pocket if I meet another professor of such high standards like myself. Not the murder part, but why would someone do such a thing? Well, the reasons are actually twofold, both equally not great. The reason first, as Nakajima is a father of 2 children with his wife, having a third child with his mistress is something that absolutely cannot happen. Especially so if this mistress decides to tell the truth about her child one day. It'd be so deplorable of Nakajima that it may even cost him his job. Second, by having a child, Yuka would actually gain power over Nakajima and should be able to blackmail him, as I mentioned in the previous point. Furthermore, because she's of a lower social class than him, being a unmarried office lady in her 30s, Nakajima realizes that this would actually tarnish his reputation more than if she were someone else's housewife, or if she were of a higher socioeconomic status. So, we have learned that Nakajima is what you call a major misogynist. So, given that personality trait, what else would have been affected by the news of an affair coming out for Officer Nakajima? Raymond!
Considering who he is and what he does, I think he would have just lost like pretty much all chances to progress his career. Because like, isn't a lot of aren't a lot of careers just sort of tied to you having a nuclear family that you have to care for? So
Yes.
if you are found out having an affair or an illegitimate child, you just sort of lose that opportunity.
Exactly, and it's also tied to this idea of being a model citizen of society and putting on that look, even at work. Jelly bean for you for that thoughtful analysis.
Thank you.
There you go there. Now we're currently at 3.5 for Raymond, 4 jelly beans for Shoue, 2.83 for Naoki, and 0 for Marzia. Moving on! Let's move on to Iguana Girl! Iguana Girl was published in 1992 by the manga magazine Petit Flower. In the short manga, Iguana Girl depicts a girl's struggle to meet Japanese society's expectations for how girls should behave. From an early age, Japanese girls face pressure to meet their beauty standards. In Iguana Girl, the main character Rika is often compared with Mummy, her younger sister. Since the mother only sees Rika as an iguana, she often mistreats Rika and is not concerned about her being girly enough. When Rika tried a pink dress on for the first time, what was her mother's response? Naoki, may I hear your thoughts on this?
Yes. Pink dress, right? Maybe her mom changed her mind about Rika because she thought it was very cute.
I mean, I too think that Rika is very cute, but that's not the answer. I'll give you half a jelly bean for that, though, because we agree. Iguanas are cute. We just heard from Raymond, so let's hear what Shoei has to say.
I remember the mother saying that pink doesn't suit Rika just because like she have like dark skin complexion, which doesn't make sense. But yeah, I think that's what the mother said.
And you're absolutely right. Well, it is quite a sad and mean thing to say to your daughter. Rika's mother does not think that pink suits her because Rika has a darker skin complexion. Let's look deeper into the reasoning behind her mother's response. In Japan, having pale skin is considered to be beautiful and very feminine. Similar to Western culture, pink is a color that represents femininity. From such a young age, Rika was taught that she wasn't worthy enough of wearing the color pink because she wasn't feminine and beautiful enough. Gendering colors was the worst thing that could possibly happen to society. One day, when the mother was baking with Mommy, she thought to herself, "Oh, quote, oh, I've always dreamed of this, baking cookies with my daughter," end quote. In the 1990s, being a full-time housewife was very, very, very common. Census conducted in the 1995 census reported that 45.2% of all married women in Japan were actually full-time housewives. Therefore, it was desirable for girls to be taught to do chores, housework, and other home economic-related things like cooking and cleaning from a young age. Unlike Mommy, Rika enjoys playing baseball, but after a major incident, the mother stopped allowing Rika to play baseball. What was the mother's response when a teammate asked her why Rika couldn't play baseball anymore? It's sad that she couldn't.
Yeah, that's sad. It's got to be because like she was concerned for her well-being, right? Like Rika is gonna get injured by playing baseball, and like she'll snap her tendons and stuff, so she shouldn't be doing that.
It
right?
it is quite a violent sport, and dangerous things can happen. You can get a concussion. That's not good, but not quite the answer.
Huh.
Close, but no jelly bean.
Drat.
Well, I don't know if slimes play baseball or not, but Naoki, why?
Slimes do play baseball. And I think, or I remember that the mom said to the boy, Rika's a girl, so she shouldn't be playing baseball, which makes no sense because it's for everyone, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
baseball's for everyone, and Rika shouldn't be discriminated against it because she's a girl. But that's exactly what her mother does. Jelly bean for you.
Yay.
And I'll give you the blue one because blue for baseball. And B.
Yes.
Baseball is known to be a boyish sport. Despite baseball being the most popular sport in Japan, only 2% of the female population actually participate in baseball compared to 12.5% of all males. Rika's actually not allowed to participate in what she loves simply because of her gender. Because of the way her mother treated her, and the fact that Rika didn't conform to gender stereotypes and norms, Rika believed that she was an iguana, ugly and undesirable, simply for being herself. The mother hated Rika for being so similar to her. Perhaps when Rika's mother was younger, she also enjoyed playing sports and acting boyish. But society taught her that those behaviors are undesirable and that to find love, they must behave femininely, and so Rika's mother passed that sentiment on to her daughter. In college, Rika fell in love with a boy who was comfortable with his masculinity and accepted her for who she was. The Unfertilized Egg by Hasegawa Junko. The Unfertilized Egg, in short, is about a 36-year-old woman, Moriko, whose goal is to give birth to a blood-type B daughter during the year of a horse, as expected by her family. Seen in the way her younger colleagues look down upon her for being single in her mid-30s, Moriko finds herself struggling with the societal expectations that women should get married and have kids by a certain age. The Unfertilized Egg is very, very, very useful in understanding women's role in the early Heisei Japan, which we'll talk about more in depth in a moment. So, we have a lot of egg vocabulary in this piece here.
Egg!
So, one that comes up every now and then is the idea of a sell-by date. And we know, what a sell-by date is in real life, but what does Moriko mean by a sell-by date. Marzia, your thoughts?
When you have to, I don't know, when you have to like refresh the beans because like beans expire, eggs expire. I don't know.
I'm disappointed yet not at all surprised. I'll get you a new cup of coffee. It seems like your beans are running dry.
Well, thank you.
Sure, what do you think Moriko means by the sell-by date?
I think Moriko say sell by date because it's like the upper limit of a woman's age to get married. So like if they pass like certain age, like it's just I don't know, I think they're like not very like wanted by others. I think that's what it means.
And I agree with you completely. It is tragic, but it's like a woman's shelf life in marriage and relationships, which is, a bit of a messed up concept if you think about it. That women are only as good as their age, and there's actually a limit to that. But we'll get into that with. Moriko is 36, which, according to her, is way out of the expected age range women should get married by in Japan. By, quote, sell-by date, Moriko is referring to herself as well as her reproductive system and how her likelihood of getting married and having kids is much lower now that she's 36, which is years past the sell-by date or ideal upper age range in which women should get married by, which is a very, very messed up concept if you think about it. Very objectifying, yes. In recent years, it's much more socially acceptable for women to get married later by choice. For example, to pursue their careers. This can be seen by the increase in the average age of women's first marriage in recent years compared to the early 2000s, which was when Unfertilized Egg was published. Therefore, the sell-by date of women in Unfertilized Egg can be seen in the average age of women's first marriage, as well as the first childbirth in the early 2000s, around 28 and 29 respectively. When Moriko loses her job, Alno decides not to come back for Moriko. She finds out later from a colleague that Alno has left her for, quote, Risa from advertising, for impregnating her. Damn, Alno, what a guy. Here, a clear juxtaposition can be seen between Moriko, whom Alno leaves, versus Risa, who is pregnant with Alno's child. Through this, the writer emphasizes the idea that in early Heisei Japanese society, the woman's value for men really relied on the woman's youth and ability to become a mother, which are two qualities that Moriko lacks. But why does Moriko use the term sell-by date? Let's put it this way. For example, customers in a supermarket would rather buy eggs that are fresh and not the ones that are past their sell-by date, right? So by saying sell-by date, Moriko is implying that men do not want to marry a woman like Moriko, who is past their sell-by, air quotes again here, age, which is around 20 or 29. In addition, we can't fail to mention how the term sell-by date and the implication of men as customers and women as products represents the derogation and marginalization of women at the time. By regarding women as a product that had to be sold before its sell-by date, the writer Hasegawa Junko successfully demonstrates the societal norm to objectify women. Moriko dreams of egg very, very often. But what happens to the egg in Moriko's dream? And for the bonus jelly bean, what does that represent? We haven't heard from Naoki recently, and slimes are also egg-shaped. So do you have an idea of what the egg represents?
Does she cook them, and does it represent her breakfast?
Not quite. So you are making me a little bit hungry with that. Minus half a jelly bean, because I don't have food. Give you a rotten jelly bean.
No.
Raymond, can you make me slightly less hungry? And
Yeah.
feed my desire for knowledge.
I don't know about the first one, but yeah, for the second one, sure. The egg breaks, usually in her hand. Sometimes it's thrown at her, and this represents sort of her lack of confidence in becoming a mother. Just because like she can't handle this egg, she keeps breaking it. So what's she gonna do for a child? Is she gonna break the child?
Is she?
I don't
That
know.
we never know. But a jelly bean and a half for you for the right answer.
Woo!
Yay! Thank you for satisfying my craving, my hunger for knowledge with that excellent answer.
Of course.
Offer you a nice egg in this trying time?
Yeah. So, well, to answer the first part of the question, the egg breaks. And author Hasegawa Junko vividly describes the way in which the white breaks, the fragments of the shell, egg white, and the yolk fall through Moriko's fingers. Eggs in general represent life and reproduction. Thus, the dream of Moriko breaking the egg represents her lack of confidence in becoming a mother in the early Heisei Japanese society, in the way that early Heisei Japanese society expects. From Moriko's statement, quote, I bet they, her young colleagues, lay good eggs, free range and dark brown rather than white, end quote. It can be seen that the white egg she receives in her dreams is significant in demonstrating how Moriko is not confident in the quality of her eggs. In other words, her ability to get pregnant. This is also seen in which the way the voice scolds her hold the egg carefully, undermining Moriko's ability to become a mother, presumably due to her being past her sell-by date. Likewise, strongly relating with the idea of a sell-by date, the dream represents another way Moriko suffers from societal expectations in early Heisei Japan that diminishes mothers who have their first pregnancy at an older age. Once a woman is past her sell-by date, the consensus is that she would not be able to be healthy and active for her child, even if she's able to give birth. Well, personally, I thought that this was particularly relevant because I've had a friend's mom jokingly tell my friends that it'd be better to get married and have kids early because who wants to be mistaken as a grandma when your kids bring over their friends? I would. I'd like to be sitting by the fire knitting wonderful, cozy garments. I thought that this goes to show how people, expect younger generations to go through the same expectations that they had to go through, which is also seen in the story where Moriko struggles from the expectations held by her mother and grandmother to have a, quote, type B girl, blood type B girl in the year of the horse, end quote. Interestingly, in her dream, the voice tells her to hold the egg tightly but gently, end quote. A seemingly contradicting phase. I personally argue that this represents her internal conflict of not knowing what to do. The right action to get herself pregnant with the B type, year of the horse daughter. This is supported by Moriko's questionable actions in seeking married men like Almo and Mikami. Moriko is too focused on getting fertilized in the first week of March, so much so that she does not seem to care much if the man has a wife, thus not considering the consequences that she would likely face a single motherhood and raising a child between her and a married man. Convenience store women, or marry? Career? By Murata Sayaka. Time has passed, and it is now near the end of the Heisei era. Let's discuss Convenience Store Woman, which won the Akutagawa Prize in 2016. Just like Moriko in Unfertilized Egg, the main character of Convenience Store Woman, Keiko, also struggles to meet societal expectations. In the novel, Keiko, who is 36 years old, faces many challenges to be perceived as, quote, normal by her peers. Keiko does not fit into Japanese society in two ways. First, she's neither married nor even in a relationship. Nor has she ever had a relationship. As a woman her age, this is considered to be incredibly abnormal. Second is her job. A convenience store clerk is considered to be a dead-end job as there is no hope for career advancement, and everyone sees it as a temporary job. However, Keiko has been working there for over 18 years. So, as seen in an unfertilized egg, when women reach a certain age, they're expected to get married. And this term, Christmas cake, was used as a metaphor for a woman rendered unmarriageable because, is it A, they're pretty but you only want them once a year? 2, they expire after 25, like December 25th? Christmas? Or C, they're undesirable as they're expensive? Or D, people only care about their looks and not their taste, aka their personality? Marzia, well, coffee goes well with cake, so do you think you can whip up a quick answer for me?
Well, I don't know. It would have to be C. Think of how many coffees I could get in exchange for just one really expensive Christmas cake.
So you would rather spend your money on coffee than a partner?
Well, that's just good economics.
You know, you might have a point there, but not the answer I was looking for. Naoki, what
Yes,
say you?
I think it's B, since Christmas cakes do have a definite expiration date, and no one wants to eat a Christmas cake after the 25th, which implies that no matter how attractive a woman is, no Japanese male would want to marry her after she's 25.
And it is unfortunate that the most brutal of all answers is actually the correct one. And here's a little bit more on that. The so-called, quote, appropriate age to be married has changed over time. The latest Japanese census data shows that more and more people are marrying older, with most people under 25 remaining unmarried. The rising age at first marriage could be explained by the increased financial security among women. The increased financial security can partly be explained by the rising number of, quote, parasite singles. The term parasite singles refers to young working people between the ages of 18 and 40 who decide to keep living comfortably in their parents' homes to save money. The increase in active participation of Japanese women in society also plays a role in financial security for women. With higher educations and rising income, they depend less on a husband to afford housing or other things, or simply to live normally. This emergence of independence among women has created a new norm in Japanese society. It became socially acceptable for women to pursue their career goals instead of marrying and having children. Therefore, now, Japanese society expects women to marry or have respectable careers. When Keiko was 18 years old and working at the convenience store, no one questioned her. However, as she got older, people started to wonder why she never got a career of her own or decided to get married. Convenience store clerks were considered a temporary job for everyone, and seeing Keiko working there for such a long time seemed odd. Now, contestants, this is going to be a bit of a tricky question for a possible 100 beans. Can anyone say what you have learned today? A little moral of the story, if you will. Any ideas? Marzia?
Even though there has been many societal changes since the Showa era, the role of women ultimately remains the same. They are expected to become mothers and housewives in tidy nuclear families, always sacrificing for the sake of either their husbands or their children. From the sand woman who's always underestimated and remaining passive in a man's story, even though she is the titular woman in the dunes, to the mountain witch who is never taken care of by her husband and kids until she's at the very end of her life, her health having been destroyed from years of downplaying her own pain and declining health. To Yuka and Will of the Wisp, who is not allowed to live on her own as a single mother because of the threat her child poses to her lover's legitimate family and his according career stability. To Iguana Girls, Rika being pressured by her mother to adhere to attractive standards of beauty and femininity and having to give up her active and boyish hobbies. To Moriko of the unfertilized egg, feeling pressure to settle down and have kids regardless of the will to have a kid, but rather how society treats older and less reproductively viable women. And finally, Keiko of Convenience Store Woman, whose happiness in being single and working a job is less important to the people around her than her conformity to the nuclear family ideal that has been laid out to her as a woman. All of these characters are trapped into playing out the roles prescribed by their gender, and as such uphold a respectable, conformist face to the world, or they risk ostracization or even death for those who threaten the nuclear family ideal.
Oh wow, Marzia, that was was incredibly impressive. I wasn't expecting that, but here you go. Here's what.
From the moment you're born, you can't escape it. Rika couldn't escape it, and she was just a kid. You get married, and you're in indentured servitude until you die, but you try not to get married, and or your sister may lose it on you, like your Keiko, and she's screaming at you to be normal, or your coworkers make fun of you behind your back, and your boyfriend drops you the moment you want to get more committed. It's not even enough to be a mom. You gotta have a kid that benefits the guy. Otherwise, some jerk is gonna drown you off the shores of Okinawa. Oh God, what if you're using some sort of dune shoveling broodmare, absolutely trapped in a sandy suburban hell, forced to procreate and create more sand shovelers? Don't you see? It's society. We are forced into these societal expectations, creating an unending loop of being forced to have cookie cutter families, giving birth to carbon copies who will all live the same cookie cutter life, who will give birth to the same thing, so on and so forth. Hell, we're in a gender hell.
Thank you, Marzia. With that very passionate summarization and conclusion of today's quiz show, here you go. 100 jelly beans.
I would rejoice, but I'm currently having a major caffeine crash.
Understandable. Do you need us to call 911?
Yes.
Okay, everyone. Well, thank you so much for coming to today's episode of VTuber Literature. Thank you, and please give a big round of applause to our contestants. We have Shoue! We have Raymond! I think Marzia, who's still alive. And we have Naoki!
Thank you.
I hope Marcia is alive. Yeah.